Good afternoon. With sublimity and soberness, I, Arsha Sadik, with my co-host,
Arhan Mustaq,
welcome you all to the auditorium. This afternoon, we are hosting a debate like rapid speech, centralized at how our students put their thoughts and arguments across. Now, let's begin the competition. Dear friends, please note each participant will be given only 2 minutes to speak. For the first round of the session, we will be having on the stage students from 9th and 10th class. They will be sharing their thoughts on the motion democracy versus theocracy. The students, honorable teachers, for the opponents. Today, I'm not here to repeat what everybody else believes. I'm here to challenge it. We are told that democracy means freedom. We are told that democracy means equality. We are told that when majority speaks, justice has spoken. But I ask you, since when did the number become the measure of truth? If 51 people votes for injustice and 49 opposes it, does that injustice become justice? No. Justice does not need 51 votes. Justice does not need equality, and morality cannot be decided by a ballot box. As Allama Iqbal says, Jamhuriyat wo tarz hukumat hai jahan bandon ko gina karte hain tola nahi karte. That's exactly why I challenge democracy. My opponents may say democracy protects freedom, but I ask you, freedom without responsibility, what does it become? Power without moral limits, what does that become? And majority rule without higher principles, what does it become? It can become a tyranny of numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Theocratic thought begins with a different principle. Political power must answer to a higher divine law. So today, I stand firmly against the idea that majority rule should be the highest authority, because I believe a ruler should answer to something greater than government. A ruler should answer to something greater than popularity, and a law should answer to something greater than political ambition. Democracy says let the majority decide, but I say let justice decide, let morality decide, and let the higher laws decide. Because government may fall, political parties may disappear, majority may change, but if truth depends on votes, then truth itself become a prisoner of numbers. लश्कर भी तुम्हारा है, सरदार भी तुम्हारा है, तुम झूठ को सच लिख दो, अखबार भी तुम्हारा है. खून मजलूम ज्यादा नहीं बहने वाला, खून मजलूम ज्यादा नहीं बहने वाला, जुल्म का दौर बहुत दिन नहीं रहने वाला. इन अंधेरियों का जगत चीर के नूर आएगा, तुम हो फिरौन तो मूसा भी जरूर आएगा. Thank you so much.
Sheikh Salito from grade 10, and today we are here to discuss the different forms of government, democracy and theocracy. Democracy puts the final authority in the hands of common people, while theocracy puts the final authority in the religious teaching or religious principle. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to discuss who needs to hold power in democracy or in any government. It's about who needs to guide the power, and that's what theocracy is. Theocracy is a form
democracy is not the only possible definition of political legitimacy. The theocratic form of governments do also possess political legitimacy based on their religious doctrines and set of beliefs. For example, taking the example of Iran's government, they follow the system of religious doctrines that are related to the key historical concepts of Islam, which is the wilayat-e-faqihiyya, the guardianship of jurists. Democracy rewards popularity, not necessarily competence. A candidate doesn't necessarily need to be the most capable person. They need to be the person who can persuade the most voters. A brilliant economist, scientist, administrator, or policymaker may lose to someone who is simply better at emotional mobilization. If politicians discover that dividing voters in opposing groups helps consolidate their own support, polarization can become electorally useful. Democracy can create an incentive not merely to solve division, but to exploit them. On conclusion, I would say that democracy gives people the power to choose their leaders, but majority rule does not always guarantee wisdom, justice, or morality. A theocratic system, when guided by divine principle and justice, can place moral limits on powers and protest social from decision based on only popularity. Thank you so much.
The motion before us is democracy and a theocracy, but I stand firmly in the case of democracy. Why? Because democracy puts people first and the theocracy puts people first, decline. And when a nation has to choose between the will of a people and the will of its single interpretation, the choice is clear, it's democracy. Why? Liberty and a choice. As you said, democracy is vast and open form of government. Every individual is at liberty to choose their leaders for free and fair election. Powers comes from the people and returns to the people in democracy. Leaders are decided by religious authority, not by the consent. That removes the most basic freedom, the freedom that choose to governors you. Democracy always follows a constitution, a set of laws made by representatives of the people and applied equally everyone. No one is above the law. Democracy doesn't violate rights on the basis of color, caste, gender, or religious. Constitution protects minorities and gives them a voice through representation, codes, and fundamental rights. Development needs debate, science, and compromise. Democracy always dissents, criticism, and policy changes based on evidence and the public needs. A government run by a single religious authority often restricts from perform because change can be seen as against the tradition.
As democracy is considered as a better form of the government among all kinds of the governments. Democracy is the most prevalent form of government in the world today, expanding more than its expenditure, while theocracy is the least founded government, mostly founded in the Vatican City and in Iran. My dear friends, democracy is based on the rule of people, based on the rule of law, but theocracy is based on the rule of religious beliefs, based on the rule of religious leaders. My dear friends, democracy is accountable, in which people can ask the leaders what they are doing for them. But there is nothing like that in theocracy. In theocracy, the questioning to the leaders leads to the questioning to the gods. My dear friends, in democracy, consultation of majority leads to the better decisions, leads to the better quality enhancements in the decision making, which leads to the better decisions to the ordinary people. My dear friends, but there is nothing like that in theocracy. Theocracy is all about the concentration of the power in one hand. My dear friends, democracy ensures the equality, liberty, and fraternity, and all the fundamental rights, like the right to the equality, right to the freedom of religion. And thanks. Have a nice day.